So today's video, this lady by the name Carol Malone, she had this, I don't know if it's an interview, I really don't know who this lady is, and quite frankly I don't care. But on this, I believe, news network, GBN, she shared her sentiments. She's not happy that there are white people and maybe even non-white people who are of the opinion, they believe that colonization was a bad thing.
We now have a generation that believes everything we did by colonizing. Yes, true. It is true. They think everything about colonization was wrong. It wasn't. There were some terrible things and there were some good things to come out of it.
Good things to come out of it for who? Good things to come out of it for who? Exactly, the colonizers, because definitely not for the colonized. One thing I like about the opening statement is she said we, including herself, and I guess the rest of them into this, which for me is just fascinating because there are people who get pissed when we refer to them people as colonizers, but she basically just referred to even herself as colonizers because she could have said everything their ancestors did, but she said no, everything we did. So she roped herself into this, and quite frankly I agree with them because new colonialism very much alive and thriving globally, right? So it's still going on, and it's the present generation of the white people who are, making sure that's happening. They are the ones doing it. So quite frankly I like the we. That's more accurate than saying their ancestors, if we want to be honest, because colonization is still very much going on. It's just very rebranded, and if you don't know where to look or how to look, you might not be able to spot it. I just wanted to put it out there that I like how she said we, right? Because that's very accurate if we want to keep it 100. But let's let the rest of the clip roll.
There were some terrible things and there were some good things to come out of it. And that is about properly acknowledging your past.
Education.
Yes, completely.
Sanitation.
Transport.
I lost it at sanitation. Ain't no way the same people that tell us every 5 market days on the internet without anybody asking, they just cannot wait to come on the internet to tell us how
I made the conscious decision to stop washing my hands. I think when I was in college, because one of my good friends from college also doesn't wash her hands, and it was like how we had that bonding experience.
I don't really trust people that wash their hands because, well, one, I don't think it does anything to actually wash. It doesn't do anything to actually wash.
Give me a minute.
they don't be washing their legs.
Do you wash your legs in the shower?
No.
I do it if I have like plans.
Maybe I need to work on that.
How when they go for a dive in the pool, that's a bath.
I don't shave. I don't comb my hair. I don't take a shower. If anything, here's the thing. I don't take a traditional shower. I don't use soap. I don't use soap. Like, this hair has never been washed. The beard has never been washed. There's never been soap on my chest, right? We have well water. We have a lake. We jump in the lake. We get into a cold plunge.
God have mercy upon us.
I'm emotionally stressed. I'm emotionally downcast. I am so confused of all about life.
It cannot be the same people who the Moors taught how to bathe that are talking about how sanitation came with colonization. It cannot be the same people who their blanket was unaliving Native Americans because they were so filthy. It gave the native of America diseases. They died just off of their blankets. It cannot be the same people that's talking about how they came with sanitation. It cannot be the same people who during their wedding day back in the day, right, because they did not used to shower, they were stinking. Instead of bathing, at least for their wedding day, they decided that no, we're going to pack flower instead and be carrying it in a bouquet so that the scent from the flower can mask the smell on their body. Yeah, for those who don't know, that's the history of how the flower bouquet that they carry when they're here comes the bride as they're walking down the aisle on their wedding day. That's how it started. They start carrying flowers so that the scent from the flowers can mask the body odor. These people literally had the Black Plague that came about because they were refusing to bathe. But let them tell it. They came with sanitation.
In your past.
Education?
Yes, completely.
Anytime I hear these people, as a matter of fact, anybody for that matter, talk about how them people brought education, it would always send me, because it always proves to me that some people really don't know what education is. Because if you know what education is, you would not say something that crazy. You wouldn't. Education is just the process of giving and or receiving systematic instruction or information. And to be educated means you have received said instruction or information. That's what it means. People have been passing on knowledge, skills, languages, cultures from generation to generation for thousands of years in the various different ethnic groups that we have, in the various different races of people that we have across the globe, right? They have been educating themselves from generation to generation. Pre-colonial people were very much educated. Just because the kind of education that they had back then is not the kind of education that we have today, it's not the kind of education that them people brought, doesn't mean that their form of education doesn't count as education. This is why it gets so annoying and sometimes frustrating listening to people when they base everything off of what's them people's standard. If it doesn't look like how they do it, it doesn't count. And it's just so annoying and invalidating of the ways of the peoples that existed before, that were very much valid and very relevant, ways that work just fine for the time that they existed in. Some people only see educated from a very narrow-minded perspective, very narrow-minded colonized perspective, and it's very unfortunate. Like, there are people right now who don't think that them being able to say in their language ovo, ive, era, iori, esa, like that, up to like 1,000, they don't see that as being educated. But they see being able to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1,000 as, oh, now you are educated. Do you guys get what I mean? It's the mentality of when you are able to do it and or say it the way the white people do and or say it, now you are educated. But it's basically the same thing that happens here. But because of the colonized way of perceiving the world, they don't see that, like, it's just the same thing happening in like a different fonts. Back in the day, there were architectures. One way or another, however they did it back then, they went somewhere, someone taught them how to build houses, right? Those ancient African houses that we know of, the mud huts in the different designs, and how to mix the mud and how to do whatever, mix whatever to get whatever colors, and how to do this in whatever way to get this. People went to learn that from people who know how to do it. That's them getting educated on how to be an architect, but people don't see it that way, right? It's only when you've got to the four walls of a classroom and maybe go get yourself an architectural degree, you are educated. That's why lately I'm starting to have a problem with this word illiterate versus literate, because for the most part, the people who call someone either literate or illiterate is coming from that same colonizer perspective of, if you can read in English, you are illiterate. But if you cannot read in English or speak English, you are an illiterate. That's terrible, because why is our standard for what a literate and or an illiterate is based off of whether someone can read and or write and speak in another man's language. But if this person can read in and speak in and write in their own language, they are not. It's weird. It's a very annoying and flawed way of not only perceiving yourself and your people, and diminishing way even of perceiving yourself and your people, but it's also you at the same time pedestalizing someone else's perspective and how they operate over the way you or your people operate. It's like just very, I don't know. One day I hope my people will see this. One day I hope my people will see this and stop thinking this way, because it's crazy.
And that is about
Like what?
properly
What
acknowledging
were the
your
good things to
past.
come out of it?
Education.
Yes, completely.
Sanitation. Transportation.
Yeah.
There was so much that we brought to
this is-
communities. But that is...
But you see, you're typical of what we're talking about.
No, I'm saying that colonisation, the empire was wrong. It was wrong, full stop. That's, the things that Britain might
But
have done.
that's very much
do not
through your modern
compensate for it.
sensibilities,
Yes.
you might say that, because we wouldn't now routinely go into other countries.
It was
and
a profoundly
change those-
racist set of basically invasions of other people where we subjugated people to our rule and sort of made them work for us. It was
Put yourself in
completely
the
And we
shoes-
made their countries work.
But imagine yourself in the shoes of a 13-year-old boy hearing you say that.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. What do they then... How do they then carry that through life?
Well,
In terms of who I am as a Brit.
I just find it crazy how they want to be able to eat their cakes and have it at the same time. They hate how the things that happened in the past makes them feel and look, but they don't want to relinquish whatever it is that they got from this past, that they don't like how it makes them feel. It's just crazy to me. On one hand, this is going to make the 13-year-old feel bad if we talk about it. But on the other hand, like the 30-year-old should be happy that it happened at the same time.
And there were some good things to come out of it.
Transportation.
Like, it's as if it's just like, are you even listening to yourself? The contradictions is crazy. And it's always very interesting how, in as much as they don't like how this thing makes them feel, so they're trying to run away from it, they don't actively try to correct the wrongs.
It was
Put yourself in
completely
the
We
shoes-
made their
but-
countries work.
But imagine yourself in the shoes of a 13-year-old boy hearing you say that.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
What do they then... How do they then carry that through life?
What about the people who actually had to unfortunately go through the age? What about the people who in this day and age unfortunately still have to deal with the side effects of colonization? The people who are still going through life with that. It's just crazy how after everything that happened, some of these people still find a way to make themselves the victims. They still find a way to make it so it's their feelings we should be thinking about now and talking about, not the feelings of the people who are actually still dealing with ish today, right, as a result of what they did, right?
But it's not about...
I'm not saying we shouldn't say it,
But Bev...
but I'm saying that we hear much more of that than we do about the benefits of that period of time.
Well, because I don't think there were benefits. I think that we have to be completely...
Of course there were.
So you
Well,
benefits to us.
I don't think there were.
There are benefits to
A
us.
lot of those countries did not, Jonathan, those countries,
It absolutely does.
those countries did not have money. They did not have the creativity.
Yeah, we can see the British Museum overflowing with so much of you people's creativity. The creativity in touch and follow. They come, they touch your stuff, and it goes back with them. If they were so creative and they had all of this money that they are talking about, why did they not stay back in their homes in Europe and use all of that money to build themselves? But no, so creative, they had to enslave people and make them build their countries for them.
They did not have people in
That's
positions
outrageous
of
thing to say.
power
Of course they
to
had
do this.
creativity
No,
in
they
those
didn't.
countries. They just didn't live like Britain did. It doesn't make it worse. It just makes it different.
So it's
And
okay
they
to
weren't
live without
asked-
education, and it's okay to
did
live
have-
without a transportation system, is it?
They did have education. It just wasn't our education system. They had language. It wasn't our language.
This cultural
Medicine
relativism
we
is
brought to-
precisely
Yeah.
what we have.
We have.
in universities
Yes.
I don't
now.
know.
It's
Look, I don't
precisely
know
what
why
kids are
we're
taught.
even.
And why did she say that like it's a bad thing? What's wrong with kids learning about cultural relativism? People like her and the other lady are the embodiment of everything that's wrong with this world. Bless this man's heart though, at least he was a present voice of reason, even though none of them wanted to listen.
The fact that these people still believe in 2025, big 2025, that all of that ish that happened needed to happen for us to get so-called technology is crazy, because like we could have, as a matter of fact, we would have even been way more progressive if we want to keep it 100. Technology, I believe, would have even would have been more ahead than it is right now if all of the stuff that happened in the past did not happen. Because one thing that some people I've noticed don't really talk about is the fact that colonization happened for like 400, 500 years, right? And during that time, a lot of talents were unalived. A lot of intellectuals gone. globally, people were stuck being colonized for 400 plus years. A lot of those people, generations of people whose skills, talents, knowledge, we never got to hear about or see what they would have done if they were free, right? And how all of that would have pushed us forward. We can only begin to imagine. We would never know. We were stuck in a one group of people's perspective, other perspectives totally lost. Over how many generations of people? Do you know what knowledge we have lost? Do you know what potentials this world never got to see because they were stuck either getting colonized or they were stuck in slavery? But somehow these people think they actually did the world a favor. No, they bloody held everybody back in ways that we can only begin to imagine right now. It's crazy. But guys, what are your thoughts? Let me know down below in the comment section. Let's continue this conversation there. Thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, I'll be catching you in the next one.